Hey all, and welcome to Shadow Space, and we are commenting on another BCB video. This is called Democrats Go into Full-Blown Panic as Trump Shuts Down Major Mass Immigration Loophole. This is uploaded May 22nd, this is being recorded May 23rd, and link is in the description.
A green card holder, even if I might like that green card holder, doesn't have an indefinite right to be in the United States of America, right? American citizens have different rights from people who have green cards, from people who have student visas. And so my attitude on this is, this is not fundamentally about...
If you do something that warrants being removed from the country, then you will have your citizenship stripped. It's a right. It's not granted to you just because it's not some immutable characteristic that you're ever forever granted with.
Free speech. And to me, yes, it's about national security, but it's also more...
unless you're a Democrat, in which case you believe everyone already is a U.S. citizen, and that's not something that can ever be taken away from you.
Importantly about who do we, as an American public, decide gets to join our national community? And if the Secretary of State and the President decide this person...
Well, if you believe the Democrats, that answer is anyone who wants to be.
Shouldn't be in America.
Anyone who identifies.
And they have no legal right to stay here. It's as simple as that.
Do you see more such deportations happening?
I think we'll certainly see some people who get deported on student visas if we determine that it's not in the best interest of the United States to have them in our country. So yeah, I don't know how high that number is going to be, but you're going to see more people.
There is an enormous change in U.S. immigration policy tonight. The Trump administration says any non-citizens in the country who have applied for a green card must leave the country indefinitely, even if here legally, and regardless of whether they have a spouse or children. Then they have to wait for their green card application to be processed outside of the country. We'll follow up on that.
Wait till you hear this shit. The Trump administration just radically changed the green card process, making it so much harder to get a green card. Because now, if you want to apply for a green card in the United States, you have to leave the United States to do it. Before, you can come to the United States, begin the green card application, stay in the United States while it's pending. That's going to change. The Trump administration now says most people who apply for a green card actually have to go back to the country of origin, essentially where they're coming from, and they're going to have to apply for an American visa through the American consulate in their home country. It's going to impact students, tourists, so many people. And get this.
But why would tourists who get a tourist visa to come here suddenly be looking for citizenship? Students, why would you suddenly be looking for citizenship? I imagine it could happen. At that point, couldn't your parents at home file the paperwork for you? Would it work that way?
There's currently a travel ban in place for 39 countries. So how are they going to come back into the United States of America? I don't know. For others, they're going to have to go back to countries where they may have...
Why would you want people from a country that is deemed a threat to this country to be able to come into this country and claim citizenship?
Face persecution.
Boy. So you got to talk about liberals and Democrats who've gone into full-blown panic over a bombshell announcement from the Trump administration that they're closing a major loophole in our immigration system, right? Our legal immigration system. Because illegal immigration...
To his point, this isn't even what they're doing. Letting migrants stay in the U.S. while awaiting green cards. If you get a education visa, if you get a student visa, and you come here as a student, you are not awaiting a green card. You have to apply for citizenship while you're in the country. That isn't just waiting. It would be one thing if you applied for a green card in your home country, you were approved and you were waiting for your green card, and then you came to this country. That would be one thing. It's another thing to come here on a visa and then apply for citizenship while you're here on the visa.
Is a problem, but to be honest with you, legal immigration is a much bigger problem, okay? Because a majority of the people who come into the country illegally start by coming into the country legally, and then they just overstay their visa, or they take advantage of loopholes that are built into our system that allow them to overstay their visa and change their status so that they can stay here in the United States, quote unquote, legally. But what they're really doing is that they're taking advantage of the system. Okay. You have people come over here on visas that are temporary, and then all of a sudden they fall in love in a week, right? And they get married, and all of a sudden they can stay, right? Even though they're only supposed to be here temporarily, okay? So again, the Trump administration is closing a loophole involving the green card process. The Department of Homeland Security put out a bombshell memo, got 16.3 million views. This really broke the internet here. An alien who is in the United States temporarily and wants a green card must return to their home country to apply. This policy allows our immigration system to function as the law intended instead of incentivizing loopholes. The era of abusing our nation's immigration system is over. Yeah, so as always, the immediate freak out over this is overblown. I'm going to tell you guys what I think is actually going on. In fact, they put out more guidance on what they actually are trying to do here, and it should tell you a lot about who they're actually targeting. But again, the initial freak out is that people who are here legally, right? So, you know, they came to the country and they decided to get married, right, to a U.S. citizen, and now they're in the green card process, or they're working here. For example, they're on the H-1B visa, and they decide to apply to stay permanently with the green card, or, you know, other circumstances where people are here legally, students, and they say, hey,
Yeah, I don't know how it works for marriage. I don't know if you have to wait in those instances. You might. I have no idea.
I want to be here permanently. I'm going to apply for a green card. Basically, the Department of Homeland Security is applying the same policy that most Western and developed nations, in fact, most nations in general, have when it
Just
comes
because
to.
I think marriage is more naturalization than actually like gaining citizenship. So I don't think it works the same, but it might. I don't know.
This process, right, of permanent residency, which is that you gotta wait in your home country, right? In a vast majority of countries on Earth. Again, the United States is the exception here. Okay, not the rule. We're the exception. If you are applying to stay there permanently, you don't go to that country first and then say, hey, I want to stay here permanently. You apply to stay there permanently, and then if you
When
get
you
accepted,
get accepted, then you
go,
come over
right?
here. Yeah.
Again, we're the exception, not the rule, right? And again, liberals are currently freaking out. They're losing their minds
Or
over.
if you're seeking asylum. But if you're seeking asylum, then you aren't seeking to become a citizen. You aren't seeking a green card. You are seeking asylum, which is
This
something
memo that was put
different.
out by the Department of Homeland Security.
It's
Take
like
a
an
look.
extended
I have some really
stay
terrifying
visa.
breaking immigration news. USCIS is basically saying no more green cards in the United States. USCIS released a policy memo this morning, which is the most illegal policy memo I've probably ever read as an
Hold on.
immigration attorney. It's the most no more green cards in the United States.
I don't think we've ever given green cards just for visa overstays. So I don't think this is ever happening. And just the reason that I went back is because she makes it sound like the US isn't giving any green cards ever to anyone who ever wants to come into this country ever, which is not true.
USCIS released a policy memo this morning, which is the most illegal policy memo I've probably ever read as an immigration attorney.
See, but all you have to do is get the legislators to change the law, and something that is illegal can be legal. They put prohibition into law, and then they repealed prohibition. Like,
It's basically ignoring
It's
a law
made
that
up.
was created by Congress that allowed people to
like
overstay their
most
visa
things that people make are made up.
or have some
Like,
kind of immigration violation to adjust status and get their green card in the United States. This includes people who overstayed their tourist visa, they worked on their
Mhm.
tourist visa, they worked without authorization, they worked for a company outside of their student visa, they got married on their tourist visa, etc. Any kind of conduct that was inconsistent with your visa when you entered the country could be a reason why they deny you. Now, what does this mean for people with pending applications? I don't know, because the memo doesn't state when they are going to start enforcing this and essentially ignoring the law. What I can tell you is that policy memos created by the government can't just ignore the law. There is going to be a shit ton of lawsuits filed immediately in favorable jurisdictions, and I believe that we will prevail in court. Although this is absolutely
We'll
terrifying.
see. But this is the thing, is that if the law has been misinterpreted or hasn't been being interpreted correctly the whole time, then it's possible that this is the way that they should be following the law. You would really have to present a case and see how, more than likely, the upper courts ruled on it.
To read, I don't believe that the government will get away with this. But this is definitely something that every immigration attorney is watching, and I will keep you updated.
Adjustment of status just got a lot more dangerous. Immigration just released a shocking new policy memo emphasizing that adjustment of status is not a right. They are now no longer saying that adjustment of status is a normal process to get a green card. And they are expecting everybody to process for their green cards at a U.S. embassy abroad, not adjust your status. This is a huge philosophical shift for U.S. immigration.
Yeah.
Because for years, adjustment of status through marriage inside the United States has been very common. Since the time I have been born, 50 plus years ago, I don't want to age myself. Now, USCIS is basically telling immigration officers to heavily scrutinize every adjustment case. The memo specifically tells immigration officers to look negatively at people who overstayed their visas, people with status violations, people with unauthorized employment, people with conduct inconsistent with their original visa purpose. Now, immigration is also emphasizing preconceived intent much more heavily. So that old 90-day rule, wait 90 days and then get married about, that we always talk about, that may be down in the garbage now. We honestly do not...
Even you acknowledge that it's just a trick. That it's just a way for them to be able to get into the country, gain citizenship, and then be in here. It's the reason that they're going after those people.
Know yet, or even know if USCIS is going to effectively ignore that 90-day rule and do something completely different. Because this memo strongly suggests they may start asking, what was your real intention when you came into the USA? Did you really intend to come temporarily? Or did you intend to stay permanently all along? Even if you married 180 days after you came.
Because technically that's lying. If you were truly seeking citizenship, but you came in on a temporary visa, then you technically weren't coming here for the reason that you wanted to be coming here.
To the U.S. So this means entering on a tourist visa and later marrying a U.S. citizen is going to be much more heavily scrutinized. People with overstays, unauthorized employment, questionable travel history, inconsistent social media, prior violations, inconsistent statements could all potentially face much more strenuous questioning at an adjustment interview. And the memo even says...
Well, not more strict scrutinization of your record.
Applicants may need outstanding equities to overcome these negative factors. And that is a real dangerous phrase, because what qualifies as outstanding equities? Who the hell knows? So...
Oh my God, it gets worse every single fucking day. You're telling me that people who are here legally on visas just trying to...
No, people who are here illegally on expired visas.
...get their green cards can't finish the fucking process here in the U.S. anymore. I personally know people who are in the middle of this process who do not have the means to fly back home.
Then if they knew that they only had enough money for one trip over here, why did they apply for a visa instead of citizenship? If they were looking for citizenship, why didn't they apply for citizenship?
to pay all the legal fees.
It never makes
all
sense.
over
I
again.
never get it.
They are forcing hard-working immigrants back home.
Yep.
They are preventing people who look like me or have my skin color from staying. The policy states that they will make exceptions.
If they came here not thinking that they were going to stay and then decided that they were going to stay, or if they decided that they were going to stay the whole time, but they came over here saying that they weren't going to stay.
Extraordinary circumstances. But what the fuck are those circumstances? Their priority isn't removing the criminals.
If you had some sort of medical problem, if you couldn't afford a plane ticket home, I'm sure there would be reasons that, well,
rapists,
I guess I don't know what those reasons are.
The gang members, the patients of mental institutes. These are hard-working, temporary visa holders who have followed the rule book step by step to obtain their green card.
No, because if they had done that, then they wouldn't have been in the country until they got their green card.
And yet again, this country shows their racism.
See, if they were truly showing their racism, then they wouldn't let you in the country at all. Unless you were white or you shared the majority race's ideological framework. Like,
when I do videos like this, I feel like a villain. I really do. When I listen to these liberals cry about something the Trump administration is doing that they disagree with, right? Their reactions are funny, and they always make me laugh. And again, I feel like a villain, right? So with that being said, let's tune in to the mainstream liberal media's reaction to this news.
A major shakeup is coming for green card applicants here in the United States, and this is important. The Trump administration says anybody in the U.S. who wants a green card has to return to their home country to apply.
Citizenship and Immigration Services statement. From now on, an alien who is in the U.S. temporarily and wants a green card must return to their home country to apply, except in extraordinary circumstances. Policy allows our immigration system to function as the law intended instead of incentivizing.
Apply. DHS says the new policy will allow immigration, quote, to function as the law intended instead of incentivizing loopholes.
See, and this is the idea, is that if this is truly how the law is supposed to be being followed, then you trying it in court isn't going to matter, because this is how the law should be functioning. Unless this is one of these extraordinary circumstances, in which case they shouldn't have it removed.
Applying for green cards from here in the U.S. each year.
If you could make a case that there was a need to keep them in their green card status, or keep them in the country until their green card status was finished, then yes, I imagine that you would be able to keep your green card status. Otherwise, no.
Immigration crackdown.
Keep the process
Jonathan
going.
Allen is joining me now from the White House briefing room. John, talk us through the impact of this new memo, and do we have any sense of how the Trump administration is going to enforce that?
Yeah, it's not immediately clear, Tom, whether this will actually go into effect. Presumably there will be lawsuits. There is a law. There are laws regarding who can be in this country legally. People applying for green cards from within the country can be here on student visas, can be here on work visas, can be here under refugee status. And so there is every indication from immigrant rights groups that they are going to take this to court. And the question, I think, then will be whether it stands up. Now, in terms of what the administration is trying to do here, they're absolutely trying to signal that they want to crack down on immigration. The president had promised to deport millions upon millions of immigrants who are here illegally. He's been unable to do that. There was controversy with that policy as he charged into, his officials charged into American cities earlier this year. And I think the White House is looking for new ways to find immigrants that they can push out of the country. In this case,
I didn't quite want to say it, but I do feel like that's sort of what's going on here, is because they can't get into the jails or whatever in the sanctuary cities, they're kind of having to find new ways to try to
people who were here
remove
illegally
people
to begin with, who would now be declared effectively illegal if they stay in the country while applying for a green card.
Yeah. So you see that, you heard that, okay? All of the freak out here, right? Just for the U.S. CIS spokesman, Zach Cowler, to put out a clarifying statement saying, quote, after years of ignoring the intent of Congress in the adjustment of status application, USCIS is merely restating and reasserting that intent. While we work to operationalize this, people who present applications that provide an economic benefit or otherwise are in the national interest will likely be able to continue on their current path.
So that one person, as long as if you're a productive member of society and you aren't some sort of problem person who's just leeching off the system, then you're probably going to be fine. If you can make a valid case for why you should be allowed to stay in the country, I imagine they would have no problem keeping you.
Others may be asked to apply abroad depending on individualized circumstances. Okay, so this clearly states that, first and foremost, this is not operationalized yet. So they're not doing this yet. They don't know when they're going to do it. We don't know when it's going to actually take effect. But what they're saying is that, hey, we want to close this loophole, right? We don't want people who come over here temporarily to see that as a path towards permanent residency, right? Because let's be honest, that's what a lot of individuals are doing, right? You have these people who come over here on these temporary visas, but
because
they come over.
Really, it makes more work for the people who work in taking these people in. They're expecting them to leave. They're not expecting them to suddenly be applying to stay in the country.
These temporary visas with the intentions of staying permanently, okay, even though the visa, right, the intent is supposed to be you're staying temporarily and then you go back home, right?
If you wanted to stay here permanently, then you should have applied to stay here permanently when you applied to come to the country. You should not have come here applying for temporary stay. That's not what you were here for.
Here, they overstay their visas, which is how most illegal immigrants come into the country, believe it or not, right? By overstaying their visas, and then they'll apply for a green card, right? Yeah, they're saying, listen, we want to make this process a process where people aren't trying to overtly take advantage of this loophole. But at the same time, what they're saying is that, hey, you know, people who present an economic benefit, which is a very broad term, or otherwise are in the national interest will likely be able to continue their current path, while others may be asked to apply abroad depending on individualized circumstances. So what that means, practically speaking, is that this just ends up being means tested.
It's a U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Immigration. That's it, right? Like, that's what it is, right? That's ultimately what it is, because individuals who are probably going to be okay are those who are skilled workers who are over here with employer sponsorship, tech industry employees, anybody with employer backing or job offer, investors, high net worth individuals, like all of those people are going to be fine, right? I mean, like, clearly these
people that contribute, people that actually help society function. This won't be an issue.
Suggest that those.
This is like when with denaturalizations, and they were like, oh, they're just rounding up all these people and throwing them out. No, they're giving them their due process. They're giving them their day in court to determine whether they're staying, whether they should stay, or whether they should leave.
Who provide an economic benefit to the country are not going to be forced to go back home and apply for a green card, right? I mean, that's clearly what this suggests. And this is why, I tell people that, hey, when stuff like this is announced, you should probably wait for the details, right, before freaking out, which, for me personally, I think that cleaning up our immigration system and closing the loopholes, especially when you're talking about legal immigration, is a big deal, right? I think it's something that we certainly should do, right? In the sense that we should not be allowing people.
Because this doesn't even sound like it was a loophole. This sounds like people weren't supposed to be doing this, but people were just allowing them to do it anyways. It's not a loophole. It's people just weren't following the law.
To come here on these temporary visas, and then they just take advantage of the system and they use that in order to stay. It is not inhumane or cruel to say, hey, you need to wait in your country before coming into here, right?
Or to say that if you want citizenship, if you want permanent residence, then you shouldn't apply for a temporary stay. You shouldn't apply for a temporary stay that's more likely to be approved and then stay in the country to apply for the green card, where you're more likely to be denied.
You need to apply from your country. Like, that is what every other country on earth does for the most part, right? For the most part, that's what they do. They go through a consulate process where you interview in your home country and then eventually you are allowed in. So who it's likely probably going to affect.
And then you don't have to worry about getting this change of status. Your status is already a green card holder. You're already authorized to come into the country as a citizen. There is no extra hoop to jump through.
Are refugees and asylum seekers, people who are here illegally, right, but somehow got into the adjustment of status pipeline. So basically, if you're here illegally and then, all of a sudden, I don't know, you got married, right?
No, even if you were here legally, just you're applying for something that you don't actually want.
Yeah, you might be in some...
Because marriage is something different. You don't, unless you're planning on meeting someone and getting married when you come over here, which is just
some trouble,
not
right?
likely, unless that's what you were actually looking for.
But I believe, again, just based off this line here, when it comes to the national interest, it is likely that those who came into the country legally, right? So they came in on a work visa, tourist visa, or whatever, and they got married while still having lawful status, right? And then they ended up applying for a green card, right? After getting married or whatever. Then they're probably going to be fine, right? For the most part. I think for the most part, you're not going to have a bunch of people's spouses having to go back to their home countries and, wait and then come back in unless the spouse came into the country illegally, right? I think that's probably who they're targeting when it comes to the marriage stuff, to be honest with you. I don't think they're really going to be targeting those who, again, came into the country.
At this point, no one has even been targeted. No one has actually been removed via this new interpretation of the law, or this new enactment of the law, enforcement of the law. So there's no real data or metrics to determine what it is that they're looking for when they remove these people, because no one has been removed by this yet.
And got married and then applied for
you can't really
permanent status, the green card. But I think at the very least, there will certainly be more scrutiny around whether or not the marriage was legitimate, right? Did you marry this person simply to be able to stay here permanently, or do you actually love this person, right? I think there's going to be a lot more scrutiny around that because, people can come over here on a temporary...
Is it about love or is it about leverage?
Visa or whatever, even illegally, like we talked about. And then, they get married and then they adjust their status and they apply for a green card with the intentions of divorcing a person, right? They don't actually really want to get married to the person. They're only getting
I mean,
married to the person in
how could you test for that? How could you prove that? I
order to stay in the country permanently, right? And then they end up getting a divorce maybe a few years later, and then they're home free, right? They're just here. So I think that's who they're actually going after. They're going after the fraudulent actors, right? The bad actors and foreign students. And I definitely think that this
because
is
like that could be solved by just saying that like you weren't like full green card status unless you were married for like 20 years, 25 years. Try to put some sort of time commitment behind it, or add some sort of something like that to it.
targeting foreign students, right? In the sense that you have these foreign students who come over here and they study at American universities, and then they just stay forever, right? They don't go back home. They apply for a green card. So essentially, that's another way, another pathway for mass immigration to the country, right? You have these universities accepting these foreign students, and then these foreign students come over here on a visa, and then they apply for a green card and they stay permanently, right? That's what happens. So again, Trump is trying to close up that loophole, okay? And there are certain types of immigrants who are currently applying for green cards. Yeah, they're probably going to be affected. Now, we don't know if it affects the people who've already applied, right? But if you're going to apply in the future, then likely it's going to affect you if you do not provide an economic benefit or otherwise are in the national interest of the country, whatever that means, according to the Trump administration. Yeah, it's likely going to affect those individuals. But this is not something that I think deserves the freak out that is happening from the left. But then again, they'll freak out about anything that the Trump administration does.
No, especially when it comes down to removing people that they think are otherwise innocent in this, which according to this, the truly innocent people shouldn't be being harmed by this at all. Not that that means that some people might not slip through the cracks, but it's not intended to do that.
They're trying to close a loophole, right? They're trying to send a message that you can't just take advantage of our legal immigration system in order to stay here permanently when, again, we have processes for obtaining permanent resident status. And ultimately today, what they're going for is not that much different than what other countries, other Western countries do, okay? But because we're the United States of America, apparently, according to leftists and liberals, we're demanded to allow the third world into our country. They can just come in, an unlimited amount of them, and we have no rights to enforce our laws or to enforce, immigration policies or border policies or anything like that. So, what's happening here essentially is that there are people who are slipping through the cracks, who don't provide an economic benefit, who are living off the system, who are a net negative to this country, that are here applying for green cards, that did not come into the country the right way, who had no intent of actually leaving but got into the country anyways. And the administration is trying to crack down on those individuals specifically. Okay? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
I agree with that. It's really getting people to come in the right way. There is a way that you should try to come in. Yes, there will be some instances where going through the proper channels is impossible. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean that you shouldn't just try to stow away on a boat and then just come across the border. That's kind of what this reminds me of, is the denaturalization hearings. This is really just, they're now going to be targeting these people. They're going to be looking for people who are green card holders, or are applying to be green card holders, but aren't quite finished in that process. I don't know. It's really just more deportation stuff